join us for another bedtime story for grown-ups, as we sometimes like to call them. If you enjoy our offering, please subscribe to our channel. We also love to hear about where you live and what time it is where you're listening from. And now, please enjoy our story. Episode 6, Caged Instincts, an Alistair Finch mystery. Part 1. The animals were awake long before the gates opened. That was the first thing Finch noticed. He stood just inside the service entrance of Haversham Exotic Park, collar turned up against the cold, hat low on his brow. Dawn had not yet settled into full morning, and the zoo existed in a half-light. Concrete paths slick with dew, iron bars beaded with moisture, breath fogging the air. Somewhere to his left, a low growl rolled through the trees. Not loud, not threatening, just present. Finch paused, listening. "You get used to it," said the man beside him. Eventually, the speaker was Martin Greaves, deputy director of the park. Neatly dressed, early 40s, the sort of man who had learned to speak calmly no matter what was happening around him. His shoes were impractical for the gravel paths, but clean. Finch doubted Greaves spent much time here before opening hours. "What am I listening to?" Finch asked. "Awareness," Greaves replied after a moment. "Animals know when something's wrong." Finch didn't comment. They walked on together, past shuttered kiosks and hand-painted signs promising wonders of the wild. The lettering was cheerful. The atmosphere was not. "Bodies in the tiger enclosure," Greaves said, as though discussing a scheduling error. "Senior keeper, Harold Baines." Finch stopped walking. "In the enclosure," he repeated. "Yes." "And the animal?" "Secured. Sedated as a precaution." Finch exhaled slowly. "You're aware how this looks?" Greaves nodded. "Of course. But it was an accident." "They always are," Finch said, and resumed walking. The enclosure loomed ahead, a wide concrete pit ringed by iron fencing and reinforced glass. Faux rock formations climbing the back wall. The tiger lay at the far end, massive and still, flank rising and falling slowly. Harold Baines lay near the center. He was on his back, one arm bent awkwardly beneath him, legs twisted slightly as though he'd fallen rather than been attacked. His khaki uniform was intact. No tearing, no blood. His face was pale, his eyes half open, staring at nothing. Finch took it all in without speaking. "How'd he get inside?" Finch asked. Greaves gestured upward. "Service gate." He had the key. And why was he here before opening? He always did early rounds. Trusted the animals. Finch looked down at Baines again. "Did the animal attack him?" "No," Greaves said quickly. The vet confirmed it. "No bite marks. No claw wounds. So he fell." "That's the assumption." "From where?" Greaves pointed to a narrow metal platform near the rear wall, used for feeding and observation. Finch studied the distance. "A fall like that could break a neck," Finch said. "Yes." "Could," Finch emphasized. A uniformed constable approached quietly. "Sir, pathologist's on the way." Finch nodded, then turned back to Greaves. "Who found him?" "One of the junior keepers. Opened the enclosure remotely, saw him on the ground." Finch's gaze drifted to the locks on the service gate. "Heavy. Industrial. Recently handled." "You said the enclosure was locked." "Yes." "From the outside." Greaves hesitated. "Yes." Finch straightened slowly. "So either Harold Baines locked himself inside after falling to his death," Finch said evenly, "or someone else locked him in with a very convenient explanation." The growl came again, closer this time. Finch didn't look away from the body. "Accidents happen," Greaves said. "So do cages," Finch replied. And Finch already knew one thing, standing there in the half-light, surrounded by bars and silence. Whatever killed Harold Baines had nothing to do with the tiger. Part 2. The staff offices sat behind the public facade of the zoo like a spine. Narrow corridors, peeling paint, notice boards layered with outdated memos and handwritten reminders. The smell was a blend of disinfectant, damp wool, and something faintly organic Finch couldn't quite place. Feed, fur, fear. They gathered them in the break room. 6 people stood or sat around a scarred wooden table, mugs cooling in their hands, eyes flicking anywhere but toward Finch. The radio in the corner had been turned off. Without it, the room felt smaller. Finch removed his hat, but kept his coat on. Detective Inspector Alistair Finch, he said, voice level. I'll keep this brief. One of your colleagues is dead. Until we establish how, no one leaves the premises without checking in with my officers or me. No one argued. A few nodded. One woman folded her arms tighter. Finch let the silence work. Mr. Greaves, he said, turning slightly names. Greaves cleared his throat. Of course. This is Dr. Evelyn Mercer, senior veterinarian. A woman in her late 30s inclined her head, face drawn, hair pulled back too tightly. Peter Holt. Greaves continued, gesturing to a tall man with nicotine-stained fingers and a permanently hunched posture. Big cats. Holt didn't look up. Angela Price, primates. The woman with crossed arms met Finch's gaze without blinking. Tommy Wilkes, maintenance. A young man, barely out his teens, pale and sweating. And Cynthia Lawless, Greaves said last, almost reluctantly. Visitor services. Finch's eyes settled on her. Cindy Lawless stood apart from the others, leaning against the radiator. Early 30s, maybe late 20s. Dark hair pulled into a careless knot. Heavy boots, jacket frayed at the cuffs. Her expression was guarded, but not afraid. Street smart, as requested. She had the look of someone who learned early when to keep quiet and when not to. Ms. Lawless, Finch said. She nodded. Inspector. Her accent was local. South London edges softened by years of public-facing politeness. Finch turned back to the group. Who last saw Harold Baines alive? A pause. Then Peter Holt spoke, voice rough. I did. Yesterday afternoon. Feeding round. What was his mood? Holt shrugged. Same as always. Watching. Correcting. Angela Price snorted quietly. Finch caught it. Care to elaborate, Miss Price? She hesitated, then shrugged. Harold liked things done his way, even when his way was outdated. Meaning, he didn't believe in change, she said. Didn't believe animals should be handled differently just because people felt bad. Dr. Mercer cleared her throat. That's not entirely fair, isn't it? Angela shot back. You argued with him last week about the orangutan enclosure. Finch raised a hand gently. One at a time. He turned to Mercer. You and Mr. Baines disagreed? Mercer nodded. Professionally. He'd been here 20 years. Thought experience trumped research. And you? I think animals feel stress, she said simply, even if we don't like the implications. Finch glanced at Cindy again. She was watching the exchange carefully, filing it away. And you, Ms. Lawless? Finch asked. How did you know Mr. Baines? Cindy shifted her weight. I didn't work with him directly, but he had opinions. About people, she said. Mostly me. Greaves frowned. That's not. He didn't like me being here, Cindy continued calmly. Said I didn't belong. Said the zoo was becoming a circus. Finch noted the phrasing. Did he threaten you? No, she said. But he watched. Always watching. Finch felt the room tighten. Did anyone hear an animal disturbance last night? Finch asked. Tommy Wilkes raised a trembling hand. There was noise. Around midnight. Tigers restless. And did you check it? Finch asked. Tommy shook his head quickly. No, sir. That's not my job. Whose job is it? Harold's, Angela said. Always was. Finch closed his notebook. Thank you, he said. We'll speak individually. As the group dispersed, Finch lingered. Cindy stayed. You've got questions, she said. I always do, Finch replied. She gave a thin smile. You don't think it was the tiger? No. Good, she said. Because Harold was afraid of losing control. Finch studied her. Over what? Over everything, she said. Animals. People. Change. She hesitated, then added, and someone was changing the locks. That got Finch's attention. Say that again. Cindy pushed off the radiator. Someone replaced a service lock last week. Didn't log it. Harold was furious. Who did the work? Maintenance, she said. But he didn't do it alone. Finch looked down the corridor where bars and shadows stretched like ribs. Cages, he murmured. Cindy nodded. Funny thing about them. Finch looked back at her. They don't just keep things in, she finished. Part 3. The tiger house was quieter than Finch expected. Not silent. Never silent. But subdued, as if the building itself were holding its breath. The air was heavy with warmth and the sour-sweet tang of meat. Condensation filmed the glass, blurring the massive shapes pacing just beyond it. Finch stood with Dr. Mercer at the threshold, his hat tucked under his arm. "This enclosure hasn't been updated," Mercer said. "Not really. The public sees fresh paint, new signs. But the infrastructure," she trailed off. "Old," Finch finished. "Dangerously so." They walked along the narrow service corridor behind the viewing area. Pipes ran overhead like veins. Each cage door bore scratches, some old, some disturbingly fresh. Finch stopped at one. "These marks," he said. "Claws." Mercer nodded. "Stress behavior. Pacing. Raking. And last night, the male was agitated," she said, growling more than usual. "He senses disruption. Or blood," Finch said quietly. Mercer didn't disagree. They reached the enclosure where Harold Baines had been found. The concrete floor had been scrubbed, but Finch could still see where something dark had seeped into a hairline crack. He crouched slowly, joints protesting. "His injuries," Finch said. "You said they were consistent with a fall." "Yes," Mercer said, "but not from where he was found." Finch looked up. "Explain." She pointed to the catwalk above the enclosure, a narrow metal platform running along the perimeter. "A fall from there would have broken more," she said. "Neck, spine. He had bruising, internal bleeding. But it's imprecise. Like he was pushed," Finch said. "Or struck," Mercer replied. Finch stood. "Anything else?" Mercer hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket and produced a small plastic vial. "What's that?" Finch asked. "Sedative residue," she said. "Trace amounts. Not enough to affect a tiger, but enough to affect a man." "Yes." Finch exhaled slowly. "So Harold Baines didn't slip," he said. "He was impaired. And someone knew exactly how much to use," Mercer added. They left the tiger house and stepped back into the cold morning air. The fog had thinned, revealing the skeletal shapes of enclosures and pathways. A place designed for wonder now felt like a series of traps. They found Cindy near the reptile house, cigarette unlit between her fingers. "You don't smoke," Finch said. "Helps me think," she replied. He told her what they'd found. She listened without interrupting. "Harold kept sedatives locked," she said when he finished. "He trusted no one with them. Except the people he trained," she said. "And the people he bullied." Finch raised an eyebrow. "Those aren't always different groups." She smiled grimly. They walked together along the canal that ran behind the zoo, water dark and sluggish. "There's something else," Cindy said. "He was moving animals. Off the books." She nodded. "Transfers. Temporary," he said. "But no paperwork." "Where to?" "Private collections," she said. "Men with money and poor ethics." Finch stopped walking. "That's illegal." "So is letting animals suffer," she said. "Depends who you ask." He looked at her carefully. "And you disapproved?" "Yes," she said. "But I didn't kill him." "Did he know you disapproved?" "He knew," she said softly. "That's why he was afraid." A shout echoed from the far end of the grounds. They turned. A keeper was running toward them, face pale. "Inspector," he yelled. "You'd better come quick." Finch felt the familiar tightening in his chest. "Where?" he asked. "The aviary," the man said. "Something's wrong with the locks." Finch and Cindy exchanged a look. Cages again. And someone, it seemed, was still opening them. Part 4. The aviary was chaos. Feathers drifted through the air like snow, caught in weak shafts of morning light. The great mesh dome above them rang softly as wings struck it again and again. Parrots shrieking, macaws flaring their colors, smaller birds darting wildly in frantic loops. And one gate hung open. Not wide, just enough. Finch stopped short of the threshold. "Don't move," he said, voice low. The keeper who'd raised the alarm hovered behind him, shaking. "They're panicking. We didn't open it, I swear." "I know," Finch said. Dr. Mercer was already there, shouting instructions, coordinating with two handlers who tried and failed to calm the birds. Cindy stood off to one side, eyes tracking the open gate. "That lock's been tampered with," she said. "See the scoring?" Finch crouched, running a finger along the metal. "Fine scratches. Deliberate. Someone who knew how to defeat it quietly." "This isn't random," Finch said. "No," Cindy replied. "It's escalation." A sudden flutter burst from the gate. a blur of green and gold shooting out into the open sky. The handlers cursed. One of the macaws was gone. Greaves arrived moments later, red-faced and furious. "This is unacceptable," he barked. "Close the zoo. Shut everything down." "You should have done that already," Finch said without looking at him. Greaves bristled. "Inspector, someone murdered one of your staff," Finch said calmly. "Now someone's sabotaging your enclosures. You'll follow my instructions, or you'll answer questions in a very different room." Greaves swallowed whatever protest he had planned. Finch turned back to Cindy. "Who else has access to master keys?" She hesitated. "Harold did. So did Greaves. Maintenance, obviously. And you?" She met his eyes. "I could get them. That's not what I asked." "No," she said. "I don't have them." They moved away from the chaos, toward a quiet service shed near the perimeter. "You're holding something back," Finch said. Cindy lit her cigarette now. This time, she smoked it. "Harold was blackmailing someone," she said. Finch waited. "He found out about the animal transfers," she continued. "But not just that. Someone was skimming, selling access, private after-hours viewings, exotic encounters. Illegal," Finch said. "And lucrative," Cindy replied. Harold threatened to expose it. So he became a liability. Yes. Who stood to lose the most? She exhaled smoke slowly. "Greaves," she said. But he didn't work alone. A sound interrupted them. Metal clanging against metal. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Finch stiffened. "That's coming from the old service tunnels," Cindy said. They moved fast. The tunnel entrance was half hidden behind a storage building, its door ajar. Inside, the air was cold and damp, footsteps echoing sharply. A figure bolted at the far end. "Stop!" Finch shouted. The figure ran. Cindy swore and took off after them without hesitation. "Lawless!" Finch snapped, but she was already gone. Finch followed, heart pounding, boots slipping on the slick concrete. The tunnel narrowed, lights flickering overhead. The figure stumbled, turned. It was Tommy Wilkes. The maintenance boy froze, hands raised, face streaked with grime and tears. "I didn't mean for him to die," he sobbed. "I just wanted him scared." Finch slowed, breath heavy. "You drugged him," Finch said. "Yes," Tommy cried. "Just a little." He was shouting, threatening to ruin everything. "And the locks?" Finch demanded. "I changed them," Tommy said. "Like he told me to. Like Greaves told me to." Cindy stopped beside Finch, eyes blazing. "You left him in there," she said. "With the tiger." "I didn't think." "No," Finch said quietly. "You didn't." Sirens sounded in the distance. Finch looked at Cindy. "You could have stayed out of this," he said. She wiped her eyes angrily. "Someone had to open the cages." Finch nodded once. Behind them, the zoo stirred. Animals restless, humans scrambling, a carefully controlled world coming undone. And Finch knew this wasn't just about Harold Baines anymore. It was about who held the keys and who paid the price when control slipped. Part 5. Tommy Wilkes sat hunched in the interview room, hands wrapped around a paper cup he hadn't touched. The room was one of the zoo's old administrative offices, temporary, improvised, the kind of place where truth had a way of leaking out through the cracks. Finch watched him carefully. Tommy had confessed too quickly, too completely. That always bothered Finch. "You said you sedated Harold Baines to scare him," Finch said gently. "You said you wanted him quiet." Tommy nodded, eyes rimmed red. "I didn't want him dead. Yet you left him alone in an enclosure," Finch said. "I didn't know the tiger would be active," Tommy whispered. "I thought he'd wake up before." "But you locked the gate," Finch said. Tommy flinched. "I locked it because that's how it's always done," he said. "Protocol." "Whose protocol?" Finch asked. Tommy hesitated. Cindy, leaning against the wall, noticed it at the same moment Finch did. "That's not how it's always done," she said quietly. "Not when you're inside." Tommy's breathing quickened. Finch leaned forward. "Who told you to lock it?" Silence. "Tommy," Finch said, voice low but steady. "You're already in this. Don't make it worse." Tommy's shoulders sagged. "Mr. Greaves," he said at last. He said Harold was unstable, that he needed containment. Cindy let out a sharp breath. "He told me," Tommy continued, words spilling now, "that Harold had been moving animals without permission, that if anything went wrong, it would all come back on maintenance. On me." "So you panicked," Finch said. Tommy nodded. He said just enough sedative to slow him down. Said Harold knew the risks. And the sedative? Finch asked. Where did it come from? Tommy swallowed. Greaves gave it to me. That settled like a weight in the room. Finch stood slowly. You didn't initiate this, Finch said. You were maneuvered. Tommy looked up, hope flickering, then dying. But Harold still died, Finch added, and you still made choices. Tommy nodded again, tears finally spilling. Outside, Finch stood with Cindy beneath a gray sky. The zoo had closed to the public. Animals paced. Humans whispered. Greaves build a cage, Cindy said, and let the weakest one rot inside it. Finch didn't answer immediately. I've seen men like him, he said at last. They don't think of themselves as cruel, just necessary. And now? Cindy asked. Now we see how far his control really goes. Part 6. Greaves's office overlooked the giraffe enclosure. Finch noted the irony as he entered. Tall windows, expansive view, creatures contained by invisible boundaries. Greaves stood by his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking more irritated than afraid. I assume you've spoken to Tommy, Greaves said. I have, Finch replied. He told me about the sedative. Greaves sighed. A foolish boy. I tried to manage the situation. You manipulated it, Finch said. Greaves shrugged. Harold was a problem. He wanted to expose things he didn't understand. You mean the private transfers, Finch said. The after-hours viewings. Greaves smiled thinly. The zoo doesn't survive on ticket sales alone, Inspector. And the animals? Finch asked. Do they consent? Greaves scoffed. Animals don't consent to anything. That's the point. Finch stepped closer. You let a man die to protect your operation, Finch said. Greaves met his gaze. No, I'll let a man destroy himself. Finch saw it then, the absolute conviction. The belief that control justified everything. You won't get away with this, Finch said. Greaves's smile faltered just slightly. Won't I? Later, as dusk fell, Finch stood alone near the tiger enclosure. The animal had awakened, pacing slowly, eyes following him. Cindy joined him, hands in her jacket pockets. They'll charge Greaves, she said, but not for everything. No, Finch agreed. They never do. And Tommy? Negligent homicide, Finch said. Reduced sentence. He'll carry it forever. Cindy nodded. Harold. Finch looked at the tiger. Harold thought control was love, Finch said. He was wrong. He put his hat back on. As he walked away, the growl rose again, not angry, not afraid, just aware. Greaves in the zoo aftermath. Martin Greaves is charged publicly for financial misconduct and negligence, but avoids full accountability for the broader criminal enterprise involving exotic animal transfers and illicit private viewings. Several allegations are quietly buried under pressure from donors, local officials, and conservation groups eager to avoid scandal. The zoo remains open under new management, but whispers persist among former staff and animal rights circles about what really happened.